The main features of labial bow are bow, U-loop, and tag. Basically, bow contact the most prominent labial surfaces of the anterior teeth and ends in two U-shaped loops that extend as retentive arm between the canine and premolar before getting embedded in the acrylic base plate. Draw the labial bow design on the model. The line should be parallel to the occlusal plane. At the level of 1/3 incisal height of anterior teeth, for the canine area, the U-loop width should be 2/3 of the canine width and should not be less than 5 mm. The length should be the same with the clinical crown of the canine. As usual, safety first. Please practice safety measure while bending the wire. Cut at least 15 cm length of wire. Proceed, straighten the wire. Bend a wire in a U shape that registers the average shape of the arch from canine to canine. Adapt the wire to the labial surface of the teeth, as many as possible at the level of interdental gingival papilla. It should be symmetrical for both quadrants. The bow should be touching all the anterior teeth that protruded. Bend, nice curve. At the point of 1/3 of mesiodistal canine width, bend the wire 90 degrees downwards towards the gingival. Then, mark the wire on the 2/3 of canine width that have been marked on the teeth. Proceed marking the next sides. By using Adam plier, put Adam plier tips away from the mark as the same thickness of the wire. At the point of 1/3 of mesiodistal canine width, bend the wire 90 degrees downwards towards the gingival. Proceed to the next quadrant. Make sure you hold the wire perpendicular to the plier. Make sure you hold the wire perpendicular to the plier and then bend the wire. Make sure you hold the wire perpendicular to the plier and then proceed bending. Ensure the wire is 90 degrees downwards towards the gingival. Mark the wire followed by the drawing on the model. Make sure you align with the drawing on the model. Oh, you cannot measure the length right now because of the interference of the model. So what you can do now, turn your wire upside down and then mark the wire alongside the drawing on the model. Now you can measure the length perfectly. Now the wire are marked perfectly followed by the drawing on the models. Proceed with bending the U-loop. Check the measurement on the wire and then proceed bending by using the round nose plier. Place the wire onto the round nose plier and then proceed bending by using the mark on wire. Bend a nice curve of U-loop. Make sure you bend the U-loop aligned with the label bow. Press the wire nicely to ensure a nicely curve is formed. And then adjust the width. Follow by the drawing on the model. Ensure the width should not be less than 5 mm and the length should be the same with the clinical crown of the canine. And do not touch the soft tissue. If you encountered a situation like this, what you have to do is adjust the U-loop by using a round nose plier like this until you achieve a good form of U-loop. Slowly adjust the wire. Adapt again onto the model. Align with the drawing to check the correct width of the U-loop. And then proceed bending. Whenever you make an adjustment onto your wires, please do check your wires onto the model's drawing to ensure you achieve the correct size and width of the U-loop. Now, if you're satisfied with the U-loop, now you can proceed with the other side of U-loop. I mean the next quadrant. Repeat the same steps as the first U-loop. Now, check the U-loop, both U-loop from the first quadrant and the second quadrant. Check the gap of each U-loop. Make sure the gap is within 1 mm from the tissue. Not too far from the soft tissue and not too near to labial tissue. If the U-loop is too far from the soft tissue, it might irritate the tissue. So, please adjust the gap of the U-loop until it reaches 1 mm to the soft tissue.
Ni dah sinting baju.
Iya.
Tekan.
Iya.
If you're satisfied with your level of the bow and the position of the U-loop, now you may proceed with the arm of the label bow and the tag. Adapt the wire accurate between the occlusal surface of two teeth. Bend the wire palatally and follow the curvature of the teeth and the palate. The wire along with the curvature of the teeth and palate. Any height wire will contribute to apa? Gag apa? Wire gagging kan? Tergigit wire, betul tak?
Wire gagging.
Wire gagging kan gag wire. Nak
Wire bite. Apa tu?
kenapa tanya aku tak ingat perkataan tu?
Prevent the high bite.
Prevent the height bite ah. Betul.
High bite aku. Betul sebab kalau ada daun sikit.
Bend je.
For shoulder area, you must bend the wire along with the curvature of the teeth and palate. Any height wire will lead to height bite from the opposite teeth. Boleh ke dok? Rasa macam dia dah merangkumi dah ayat kat sini. Yang ni tag. Yang ni shoulder. Sini shoulder, ni tag. Ni dicampur sekali. Betul tak Muklis?
Tengah band baju.
Okay, hang tengah band dan hang record tak? Ha? Record. Okay, so aku band dengar lah. Oh my god. Tak apa, hang boleh buang je suara aku tu kan. Tak penting kan.
Tak akan jadi rap.
Korang.
Tak akan jadi version rap.
Dia main-main ke aku? Kau tengok. Kau tak ada dia main-main ke aku? Ha?
Kerja ni orang ada apa?
Wah, aku delete tak? Ha?
Tak lagi.
Tengok, tak delete lagi.
Dah delete kan? Nak delete ke?
Tak
Rap
apa.
tu lain punya account kan?
Lain.
Oh, lain eh?
Lain punya
Lain
account.
Bukan
Oh,
Ni
okay.
aku tak boleh lah letak kat situ.
Letak kat situ.
Tapi hang letak akaun mana eh?
Kau aku lah.
Public ke?
Public lah. Yang macam itu tu. Tadi ada yang itu yang aku share.
Hang tak pernah mandi laksa kan?
Nah, itu.
Kecil.
Nasi lemak aku mandi lah.
Kecil so je aku tengok.
Nasi lemak.
Wih, senduk siapa ambil kan kat bawah? Ha? Senduk? Omo.
Keluar lah. Sendok air ni?
Senduk air.
Ambu nama apa?
Tak ada bubuh nama pun, tadi tak jumpa.
Maka badai kat sini banyak.
Saya tak nak kawan. Saya tak nak kawan awak.
Penuh session lagi.
Ada juga yang Ain punya tu.
Ada juga tu yang spellet sebelum.
Ha?
Ada juga kan yang sebat sebelum.
Alah tahu.
Dia tak sebat, dia tolong simpan.
Ikin tolong simpankan senduk akak yang tadi dia orang buat.
Ambil terus je Ikin.
Senduk lauk apa ni? Kuah roti canai tu. Dia stainless steel kot. Dia punya senduk tu.
Tak jangan kat bahagian tu. Cakap pasal senduk tapi
Balik ke akak ambil. Aduh, tak payahlah cakap.
cakap pasal senduk. Bukan wajib.
Aduh, hai.
Kenyang Nasha.
Ni nak masuk balik ke?
Basuh lah weh.
Throw into the bin.
Mahal tu. Basuh balik lah.
Weh, RM4.9 dapat 10. Mana satu ni 49 sen.
Mahal tu.
Murah.
Mahal dah weh.
Kalau ikutkan lagi mahal kot. 8.
Oh, okay.
Amboi.
Dia T20
Amboi.
and beyond. Bukan T20 kan, and beyond.
Boleh pakai ni untuk relief tension.
Basuh. Macam sekarang basuh. Tak apa, basuh.
Betul, Syah, betul.
Tak pernah try guna aluminium foil buat lapik ni. Guna jadi separator. Orang cakap cantik dia punya klinik tu.
Sama macam kita pack guna plastik lah. Macam dulu. Sama je. Cuma akak tak suka.
Cantik eh. Dia orang cakap memang dia punya
Fit nicely. Tapi akak tak suka. Kenyuh.
leceh kan mak.
Lah.
Betul-betul sebab dia.
Cepat lembut. Tu yang dalam kita punya
Kedut sikit.
U.R.A tu boleh buat macam tu. Tapi aku tak suka. Aku suka guna wax lagi. Cumanya student ni bila kita ajar sekali, dia ingat boleh apply kat semua. Kalau masak heat cure, sama je lah kan? Tu je lah beza dia. So kita kena highlight nanti kat dia orang waktu kita nak buat nak relief dia punya torus tu. Dia orang salah faham. Ya. Cik Zee kata tadi keluar. Kan? Dia kata keluar tadi kan?
Cik kena?
Wei.
Gini aku call lah.
Cik.
Now, as you can see, the label bow is already formed with the label bow intact with the most protruded teeth, and the U-loop is intact with the design, and of course the shoulder to tag is really follow the curvature of the teeth and palate. And as you can see also, the tag is 0.5 to 1 mm away from the tissue. This is what we need while bending the label bow. Label bow done. Now, our last wire component for this U.R.A is Z spring. This is Z spring. Basically, Z spring is made from 0.5 stainless steel wire. It has two coils, hence double cantilever that can move the tooth in more controlled way. In this case, central incisor 2-1 is slightly rotated. The spring can push the tooth labially so that it appears to re-rotated. The spring would have to be used in conjunction with a labial bow to do this. Before we start bending, first we need to measure the length and width of the tooth of 2-1 on the model. So this is the model. On the model, mark 1/3 of mesial and 1/3 of distal. So this is the width of retentive arm Z spring. And then proceed with mark the length of the Z spring from the cingulum area until at least 5 mm length, and it must not more than the mid of palatal arch. First, measure the length and width of the tooth to 1 on the model, and then mark 1/3 of mesial and 1/3 of distal. So this is the width of the Z spring, and then proceed with mark the length of the Z spring from the cingulum area until at least 5 mm length and did not more than mid of palatal arch. And then proceed with mark the boxing area, which is covered from the mesial and distal of 2-1. You are now done, and let's proceed with wire bending. Before we start, cut at least 10 cm length of 0.5 stainless steel wire and then straighten the wire. Do you still remember wire bending 101? Practice makes perfect. And then, by using Adam's plier, hold firmly the wire and bend. We want to make an eyelet in one end of the straightened piece of wire. The wire around the tip of the pliers, making sure to pass the wire. In front of the beaks to get very acute reduced bend. Cut off the long end and squeeze together using Adam's plier. Keep watching. And then place this eyelet on the mesial edge of the tooth to be moved and mark the wire on the distal edge. We mark the width of the Z spring from the eyelet on the mesial to the distal for the coil. Then measure the length from the eyelet to the first coil on the model and mark. And then using round nose plier, make a coil with at least 3 mm diameter. This is double coil, so ensure the coil is in a good circle shape with no gap. Bend it with nicely curve. Check the parallel position of the spring to the model. Parallel position to the model. If you are okay with the position, and then proceed making another coil. This time around, the coil should be placing near with the mucosa to ease the end of the tag making. The size of the diameter is same, 3 mm. So now this is your Z spring. As you can see, the first eyelet is the retentive arm. And then the two coils must be in a good circle shape with no gap. And then try to adapt the spring onto the model on the mark. So this is the right position for Z spring. And then make a 90 degrees bend away from spring to form the tag. Use the round nose plier and bend straight 90 degrees from the plier. Proceed to make a bend in the tag for retention in the acrylic. Again, try to adapt the Z spring and adjust the length of the tag to the model. The Z spring that you have formed now should be follow the contour of the palette. The Z spring should be perpendicular to the tooth that you want to move. So this is the position of the Z spring.
Baik lah Faiz.
Okay, now we can proceed the tag for retention in the acrylic. You may bend a L shape for the tag or the zigzag shape for the tag. Just wait. Our Z spring is now done and we may proceed with the boxing. It can be waxed in place and boxed out. Place a small amount of molten wax on the spring to hold it in place on the model. Ensure the wax is fully covered on the model, followed by the design on the model. Means the wax should be covered following the width of the teeth that want to be moved. Reposition the spring onto the model and then place a small amount of molten wax on the spring to hold it in place on the model. Ensure the wax fully covered on the model, followed by the design on the model. This means the boxing wax should cover the spring